Honestly, I think the best thing a chef can do is bring people together and motivate them to do what is this big thing we call service, this task. And when you bring people together in a way that's effective, and it doesn't involve like actual technique, but the culture you create, the environment you instill, the encouragement that you give, the support that you all those things, and that creating that environment where people are happy, and that's when the good stuff happens. And that's, I think, the key to any chef success is doing that. That's what I focus on mostly.
But I would argue that that's even good advice for any type of business.
Yeah. Chef in French means boss. Your boss.
All right, everyone, welcome. I have here Chef Jeff Lizotte. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well.
Thanks for coming. I saw we had a sort of a false start last week, and thank you for dinner, by the way. It was fantastic.
Did you guys stay for dinner? Or just...
We did. We had dinner. It was great. I had the veal Milanese, and I was in Milan eating it. It was delicious with the figs, and it's a great preparation. What did you have, Julie? You had a lobster dish of some kind. It was fantastic. Yeah.
Of course, she loves lobster.
Yeah. How could you not? I'm fresh off of. I went to the Max. I took my son. We were in New York for a soccer game. We came back and we did the Max Oyster Fest out at Rosedale Farms. Fuck, man, I ate a lot of oysters, man. My son ate 40.
Wow.
And I ate about 40. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So I figured I got my money's worth because it was like oysters are like $3 a piece.
Uh-huh.
So like if that's the $120 for 40, I paid less than that for the ticket. So I'm one of the people that got.
You came out on top.
I came out on top there. Most people eat 10 or 12. They get some wine and stuff, but they're not going to get their money's worth. I'm going to get my money's worth on oysters.
Yeah, I saw pictures. That looked beautiful.
It was great. It was good. They had
great.
I mean, you can eat as much as you want. I mean, it was great. They had clams. They had everything. So it was good. And but no, we had dinner at your place. It was as good as I remembered it. I've only been there once before, but
and never on the deck before either.
Never on the deck. Yeah. So good. So when I approached you about this, I wanted you to come in because, as you know, I love food and I love chefs, and I've known you for a long time, and I want to talk to you about your journey and what you do, and focus too on. I think I gave you a preview when we talked about like relationships, because I try to talk about relationships and not like your boyfriend, girlfriend, relationships with, in general, how you run a business and your relationships with your diners, because that's, you have to build those relationships. And my guess is you have a lot of regulars, people that come in, and, I talked about that actually. Interestingly enough, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this before we get into it about your background and whatnot. But do you know Alex McDonald from Luna Pizza? Do you know the name?
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
Cool guy. And he said something to me that's always stuck with me. He said, I had him on the pod, and I said, regulars, you have regulars? And he says, regulars is not a good word. He says, because regulars are anything but regular.
That's great, yeah.
That's a great kind of, and it's true, right? Because it's, because people that are going to come in and they want the same thing, right, and they come in and like, so it was sort of an interesting take on that. Yeah. Do you have a lot of regulars?
We do. And shout out to Alex too. He's a great guy. He brings us pizzas at the restaurant present company for my staff every New Year's Eve.
Is that true?
He has been for the last 3 years.
Why is that? Because he comes to eat there with his wife or something?
She's just a great guy.
No, but like, what's New Year's Eve? Like, why New Year's Eve?
It's a huge night at the restaurant.
Oh, I see.
He for some reason has extended his help with morale.
Interesting.
Bringing 4 hot, large pizzas from Luna.
His pizzas, it's a good pie, man.
11:30 on New Year's Eve when the staff just needs that. So it's great.
What a cool thing.
Yeah. Good relationship, totally.
No, right. That's a great
dude.
thing. He's a good dude, and he makes a good pie. I grew up in the New Haven area, so I'm very, very particular about pizza. Yeah. My wife, I told him that. I'm like, she doesn't like the Luna pizza. I love it. She's a West Hartford girl.
I remember when they had Luna, when they first opened in the Farmington Valley Mall. We called it back then, and then they had a spot in center of town in Simsbury.
That was his uncle. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Lou Termini, like the whole thing. He told me the whole story. It was wild. Like,
it was the first time we had coal-fired pizza.
It's good pizza. I love the whole milk mozzarella, but are you in the Valley? I love that Little City pizza, the little city one with the leeks on it.
Oh, yeah.
To me, that thing
their
is
specialty Little City pizza.
The specialty Little City.
That's great. The leek,
it's a leek garlic paste,
right,
grilled chicken, white pie.
Yeah. If you gotta like a white pie though.
You gotta like a white pie.
I like a white pie.
I do like. I also like a tomato pie too. I'm a tomato pie guy
Yeah.
too. But it depends on the mood I'm in. But if sometimes I'll make the drive to Little City, and I live over here, so it's you got to go over the mountain. It's a whole thing.
You grew up in New Haven?
I grew up in combination. I went to high school in Hamden, Hamden Hall, and I lived in West Haven and then in Hamden.
Cool.
Yeah. How about you?
Simsbury?
You're a Simsbury guy.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, my father grew up in Milford.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
So
so
I
New
was
Haven was his base.
I was
We had
right on
family down there.
the line, right where I was probably half a mile from the Milford line.
Yeah.
I used to ride my bike into Milford.
It's a great community.
You know good pizza down there, right? Did he have like his parents down there that you go see? As a kid?
We typically, when we went to go see Meme and Pepe, we weren't going out to pizza. We were having Meme's cooking. So we didn't go out too often. But
Tell me about that, because I bet you that was a big influence for you.
yeah, my Meme was a great cook. You know, and there was
And Meme, is that Italian?
that's French.
French
Canadian.
Like Mimi, right? Like Meme. Yeah.
She was a great cook. She always had something going on. She was always fussing with something.
Like homemade.
Yep. Her table always had something going on. You could always go there and have a hot meal.
Okay.
In fact, my father would always stop there because he worked for UPS. We lived in Simsbury, but he worked at a Stratford, so he would go out of his way to have lunch with his parents down there. Yeah. Yeah. So she had her dishes.
What was your dish that you remember most fondly?
We call it porte chinois. It's shepherd's pie. Yeah. That's what she did really good. She made, amazing blueberry cobbler from the blueberries that grew in the backyard.
Wow.
Simple stuff.
Right.
Nothing crazy.
Right.
But, quality.
Well, as you know, a lot of the food that was born out of people that were hardworking or didn't have much was always very delicious, right? It's like it's always so simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're in fine dining and there's lots of ingredients, and that could be amazing as well. But sometimes you go, and I know a lot of chefs do this when they go to Italy. They take their first trip to Italy and they come back and they're just wiped. They're just annihilated. They're like, "What happened?" They're like, "I had a dish with 3 ingredients and it was the best thing I ever had in my life." I'm like, "Yeah, because they're using the best ingredients and the technique is precise."
Yeah.
Right? I mean, did you find that with her too?
Yeah, I think I was too young to appreciate it.
Right.
I took it for granted, but I certainly relish it and use it as a reference and a point of love that she shared, that I try to think of when I think of professional cooking.
Right.
And when it comes to coming to do your job and how do you translate? Where do you find that inspiration? I draw from her and from the rest of my family. I had a great family growing up, both sides.
So were your parents intact family growing up, mother, father? Mm-hmm. So your dad worked for UPS. He's a driver.
Yep.
How long did he? Is he a guy like did it for 30 years?
He did. Yeah, he was a lifer at UPS. He started when he was at college.
Did he get all the good stock and everything?
Econ,
Oh,
yep.
so he did okay, because the drivers who were there a long time actually can earn like a really.
Yep. He had a route for a while in Eastern Connecticut, and then he did some long freight as well, and then started working in management out of Bradley.
Oh.
So he had done 30 plus.
Oh, so he's okay.
Yeah.
And then what did mom do?
She was a teacher.
Teacher.
Yeah.
Local schools.
Yep, in the public school system throughout the area, mainly in Hartford, downtown Hartford.
What did she teach?
She taught elementary school, lower grades, pre-K
Okay.
to 3rd grade. She could do it all. Elementary school, and she worked at Maria Sanchez for most of her career.
Okay.
Which was predominantly Puerto Rican.
Okay.
She was like one of the only
Was she a Spanish
monolingual
speaker?
teachers.
No.
She's Irish Catholic.
Irish Catholic.
She doesn't speak any
So Irish
Spanish.
Catholic and dad's French Canadian.
Yeah.
Okay. And any siblings?
Yeah. 2 sisters.
2 sisters.
Yeah.
And so a typical childhood?
Great childhood.
Oh, great.
Yeah, the best.
That's awesome. So it's typical Simsbury suburban childhood?
Yep. A lot of sports.
Okay. What'd you play?
Soccer.
Okay.
Yeah, soccer, lacrosse, baseball. I played it all when I was younger, but stuck to lacrosse throughout high school.
You weren't a goalie, right?
No.
All right,
Well, soccer, I was a goalie.
No, soccer. Okay. Oh, soccer I could see,
No,
but because
yeah.
it's so funny because my son, as you know, we were talking about this. He's huge, and we just went to watch the AC Milan play Man City, and we're going tomorrow to Philly to see Arsenal Liverpool.
Oh,
He's obsessed with soccer.
Yeah, I'm Premier League.
Oh, you're
junkie.
Premier League.
Yeah.
So let me tell you this. So I'm taking him to London in a couple weeks.
Sweet.
To see Tottenham play Bayern.
Wow.
And then we're touring. We're going to Manchester for the day to go see Man City. What's the name of the stadium there? Stratford Bridge.
Stratford.
Is that what it
Yeah,
is? Stratford.
yeah.
And then we're touring Chelsea. We're touring Arsenal. Wow. we're going to the National Soccer Hall, or the Football Hall of Fame, as they call it.
Yeah, that's
so yeah,
awesome.
like it's going to be great. And so we're doing Arsenal, Liverpool, and Philly. That's on Wednesday.
Liverpool. I'm a Liverpool.
You're a
guy.
Liverpool guy, yeah. So he loves it, but he likes goalkeeping as well. But it's funny because the guy I work out with, he played lacrosse, and one of the guys in the that's working out with us, he's like, "Oh, he had a lacrosse shirt." He's like, "Oh, what did you play? Goalie or whatever." Is it goalie? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Goalie. And he says, goalie. He says, so he pulls me aside. He's like, that guy's probably nuts. I said, why? He goes, guys that play lacrosse, goalies, are nuts.
Yeah, they usually are.
He says they have to have a screw loose. I said, why? He goes, because that ball is a rock, and it's coming at you at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Whereas a soccer ball's fast, but I mean, it's not a rock.
Yeah. My older sister actually played goalie in lacrosse.
Is she a little off?
She was, yeah.
What did she end up doing for a living?
So I have two sisters.
Okay.
My oldest one passed away
sorry.
several years ago,
Okay.
Almost 23 years ago. And my other one, Katie, is here in Simsbury. She's got the three boys. She is the head nurse at Westminster School.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good gig.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice school.
Yeah.
I used to. The funny story is, I used to go. One day, I was sitting at Millwright's for Easter dinner, and the guy smiles at me. I don't say anything, and I leave. And AJ texts me, and he's like, "You know who that was, right?" I'm like, "What?" He goes, "That was the Supreme Court Chief Justice." Because his daughter went to Westminster, and they used to come up for there, and I couldn't place him, even though he's the leader of my pack. You know, like I was like, here he is. But that's a great school.
Yeah, she loves it, and my parents are still in Simsbury, so she's right around the corner. So that's our home, and
That's so awesome. And now you, of course, your restaurant.
You got a restaurant in Simsbury too.
That's amazing. So you went off to, you're a Cornell guy, right?
Yeah.
So you go off there right after high school?
I transferred. I did a year at UMass first.
Okay.
I got deferred and waitlisted and whatever. It was kind of an agonizing process coming out of high school trying to get in there. And so I did UMass as a safety, and that was great. And I went to UMass Amherst for a year, and I enrolled in their HRTA program, hotel, restaurant, travel administration, and reapplied to Cornell, and then got accepted. But I was almost going to stay. I had really enjoyed Amherst, and I had made some great friends, and I thought they had a great program. But
Cornell has the best, though.
Cornell has a great program. They certainly rest on the laurels that they're the best.
Look, I think that. I didn't go there, but I know they have the reputation is fantastic.
So it was a crazy time in my life because that's when I had lost my older sister Sarah, and so I was making this decision to uproot after 1 year of college to a whole nother space, and going through all that. But that was a huge reason why I think I was able to accomplish some of the goals in my career. The inspiration that I got from her, and some of the things I went through at an early age, and some challenges that I overcame gave me some confidence to go out and cook and be a chef.
So do you, as I know we talked a little about Meme. How about, when was your first fine dining experience that you recall?
I think as a family we would say what is presently Abigail's.
Oh yeah,
the Chart House.
Yeah.
When I was growing up would be our fancy spot out.
So for occasions, birthdays.
It was where I wanted to go on my birthday.
Right.
For the mudslide pie. Or whatever.
Is that what you get? Yeah, the mudslide pie.
Yeah. Plus it was haunted, so I was.
They say that. You know people that work there. Is that true?
I've heard some things, but I can't confirm nor deny.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I've heard that too from some people too. That
Not sure I'd want to work there.
Really? Yeah. I don't know. It always seems to be like everything seems to be haunted by old people. It's never like,
it's helping business. That place is always packed.
Oh, people like it. It's who was there for a while? April was there.
Yeah.
Remember her?
Yeah.
She's there. Yeah. I think she was there for a long time. A lot of people have passed through there. But is that so? As a kid, that would be your spot you'd go out to for occasions, graduations.
That was our special occasion spot in town. And then Sarah, my oldest sister, got a job working at the Chanticleer, which doesn't exist anymore. It's where it's actually where Little City Pizza is, or in that area.
Okay.
It was a French restaurant, and she was studying French in high school, and so she decided that she wanted to continue to maybe work in French restaurants, and so she found an opportunity later on with Apricots, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
now Wooden Tap.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So Apricots was
That was the Howard family, right?
yeah, and so I actually ended up going to work there as well in high school. That was my first introduction to working.
The one on Route 4.
Yep.
Oh my God, that was such a good restaurant.
I liked it. Yeah, I mean, it was my introduction to actually a proper kitchen. I was working the deck patio chef, kind of whatever was my. So it was basically garde manger, and I was working Saturday and Sunday, so it was lunch shift. It was early.
What was that? What was their famous dish there? They had a couple of them that were
The
like
crab cake was really well known. The rack of lamb.
with the mint jelly, right? Or something like that.
I can't remember. I think it was just like a bordelaise sauce.
Oh, okay.
Some demi-glace.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The chef made. And,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. That was good.
Yeah. So, and at the same time, I was taking a culinary program at the high school, which really helped cement my ambition to stay in the kitchen. We had a really cool program in Simsbury, which this chef, Tom Santino, who's still a mentor to me today, created essentially. And Tom worked throughout the area. He's actually Hawaiian. Moved here during the 80s for work, and he worked in everything from hotels to fine dining restaurants to catering. And so he came here, was successful in the catering business throughout the 80s, decided to get into academics and create the culinary program at the high school, which was a 2-year program. It was basically 2 hours a day, 1 hour in the classroom, 1 hour in the kitchen, which is the same kitchen as the
cafeteria.
Yeah, it's the cafeteria.
Oh, that's awesome.
So you're like hanging out with the lunch ladies, you know.
And they're making that pan pizza. And
Yeah, well, what you're doing is you're building a relationship of what it's like to be in the kitchen, and
Right.
how do you act and how do you behave and what's your demeanor, and you know, how do you share that space, and like what is protocol. So we learned all about that in French cuisine at the same time. We learned the theory of it, and we got practical stuff. So it was an incredible program. Some of the students that did it went straight to culinary school. They took a sort of accelerated, you know, they would skip pretty much the first trimester of JW if they went to Johnson & Wales or the CIA. They would get some money taken off their tuition. So it was a really cool program. And
is it still available? Is it still there?
No, unfortunately, it faded away for
That's
undisclosed
too bad.
reasons.
That seems like
but
to be a good thing to.
we could bring it back someday.
Yeah?
That would be something cool.
Yeah. So you did that, and is that junior and senior year?
That was my senior year.
And you're working the weekends at Apricots.
Yep.
And then
Well, my first job actually was at Antonio's, the Hoops and Hops. Antonio's.
where is that?
It's the famous Italian red joint spot in North Simsbury.
Oh, yeah. I know what that is. Yeah,
it's
it's a
got
red
the big
sauce
A.
place. Yeah.
So,
All right, yeah, I know what that is. I've been there.
Again,
yeah,
both my sisters were working there, and so that's how I got my
that's
job.
like chicken parm, penny alla vodka.
I washed dishes there for like 2 summers until I was like, okay, I'm gonna go try Apricots and learn how to be a cook. And there were some real cooks there. I mean, I remember basically learning a lot about cold station garde manger from Carolyn, who was friends with my sister Sarah, and so I had this like really cool relationship where I was already feeling like I was taken care of, even in this like kind of very ruthless environment that can be. I walked into it thinking like, okay, I'm sort of looked out for.
Right.
I'm gonna get not only taken care of, but I'm also gonna get taught how to do things the right way. And Carolyn was she's German American, so she had a very strong discipline, which was key. So I learned quite a bit when I was there at Apricots.
Right, and so that's really where you learned how to saute, right? How to.
I don't think I ever made it
flavors,
to
no?
saute.
No?
I was frying crab cakes and mixing salads and
Okay.
chicken salad.
All
And,
right.
you know, but that was cool for me at
Well,
the
that's a
time.
start, right?
Yeah, I was into it.
So you go to Amherst. Are you working during school or?
My first year at college, I didn't work, and then when I moved to Cornell, they have a hotel and restaurant that's run by the students, which I eventually did end up working in the kitchen there, but I didn't do that right away. My sister had gone to Ithaca College, so I
Okay.
had already
You
was
knew Ithaca.
exposed to Ithaca, and I knew the restaurants down there, and I knew there was a couple places I wanted to work at, and one of them was pretty well known. It's called Moosewood, which is a vegetarian restaurant.
In Ithaca.
In Ithaca, yeah, it's quite well known for their cookbooks. Most people have like if they want to get vegetarian inspiration, they'll look up in the Moosewood cookbook. It was a really cool actual concept where they had a bunch of hippies essentially that communally ran the restaurant. So like the GM would be like, I'm the GM for the month, and then Bobby Sue would come in and take over, and then they would switch. They all, like 8 of them started it. Like it was a really cool story, and a very unique experience. I learned a lot of great things about how to cook vegetables, especially eggplant. Got my appreciation for eggplant at Moosewood, but also there was a French place that I ended up working at called Le Duc, that I was quasi the sous chef there, but it was a very small bistro that I helped open, so I got to experience the opening of a restaurant
in Ithaca.
Yep. So
wow, so you were working throughout there. What about, did you ever try that? Is it like that pizza truck? The lady makes like those homemade pizzas or something.
In Ithaca?
Yeah.
Is it down by the farmers market?
Yeah, it's like, but it's been there for like 50 years. I forgot what it was. Like she's there in the freezing cold, and it's like a little. I just remember being drunk there. Like,
yeah, it's college drunk food.
but it's great. But it's like the
it.
place is a legend. She does like 1,000 of these things. Like the guy, it was like a guy, I think. It's like a homemade pizza thing or like a garlic bread. I don't remember. I just remember it being like a. I'll have to look it up when we're done. But it's like a pretty like. I'm sure you've been there. Maybe I'm describing it wrong, but it's a truck that is open year round, and people like.
Well, this was a long time ago. It was just close to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
When I was in Ithaca, so I'm sure a lot of things have changed.
Maybe have changed.
Commons always had a decent restaurant scene. The Commons was a combination of Cornell, Ithaca, and then there's this like incredibly liberal bubble, very diverse, and so naturally there was a lot of cool eateries. There was this one place that I really loved called Maxie's, and they had a New Orleans theme, so you could go there and have like proper raw bar, but then you could get really good fried fish. Their crab cakes were amazing. Like, yeah, they had some cool stuff. Ithaca at one point had like the highest per capita restaurants.
Is that right?
Of any city in the United States. I don't think that's the case anymore, but so it was a cool place to go to college and work and learned. But I also ended up working in the Banfi restaurant, it was called, in the Statler Hotel, which was the student-run hotel. The dean had a guest every week from the industry, usually an alum, to come and speak to the students. The freshman class always had to be at like the auditorium on Friday mornings at 8 o'clock for the guest speaker. So the night before, the dean would host that speaker at the restaurant, and they selected a dean chef, which was I for 1 year, where I would basically be working with the executive chef, and we would plan these elaborate 7-8 course menus for the guests in that dinner. So and that was my introduction to like.
And
learning.
You're 20 years old?
Yeah. Chef Craig Hartman was the executive chef there, and he was a great mentor to me, and he really taught me how to how do you do a tasting menu? Like, you just don't. A tasting menu is a story. It's a sheet of music. It's a chart. It's whatever you want. It's got a reason. It's got a start. It's got an end.
It's a play. It's a whatever metaphor you want. But yeah.
So I got really into that, and I mean, by the time I finished school at Cornell, I was super anxious to get into a kitchen and start working.
Start doing it. But it seems like, everybody has a different kitchen experience. Like, for instance, Tyler, when I talked to him, I think I told you this. He started in Long Beach, and he was like at this like restaurant with all these ex-cons that were like cooking with no with their hands, and people doing all kinds of crazy stuff there. And did you get any of that, like sort of any experiences like that, like with?
Sure. I did a good job, I think you could say, throughout my life of hanging out with the bad boys but not getting in trouble.
Right.
Really.
You seem like a guy that wouldn't get involved in that stuff.
I got lucky.
Yeah. You just made good choices.
I made some good choices. I had a very supportive mother who helped me avoid.
Because it can go south fast.
Well, I had a great family. I had a great soundboard. I had great examples. My father, my grandfathers, my uncles, and everyone. It was. The more and more I get older, and the more I realized how important it was for me to have all that, to even have a shot of doing something great, So I couldn't have done it without their support.
And them, being, look at your dad. He's, traveling down to Stratford from Simsbury.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The work ethic was there.
The work ethic is, and that's probably somebody, and your mother's a school teacher. I mean, these are people that society relies upon, and giving you a good example of like, look, Jeffy, go do good and don't screw it up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But they weren't necessarily like pumped for me to go into the.
They didn't like
kitchen.
It.
Yeah.
Was it like going into comedy? You're like, I gotta be a comic, and they're like, what are you doing?
Well, it was still very much not a sure thing, or a thing that could
You could-
produce the sort of life that they
envision for you, right?
Yeah.
Like how you gonna take care of yourself.
Yeah.
So you go. So you graduate. You're 22. Where do you go from there? Like, what's your first gig out of the
New York City.
New York City?
Yeah.
Head right to New York City.
Right to Manhattan.
Manhattan.
Yeah.
Where do you live?
I was lucky. I had a great uncle in Park Slope, Brooklyn, who got me a rent-controlled apartment for $300
Oh, come on.
a month. But I had to share a bathroom with like. You've ever read Great Expectations? Like Miss Havisham, she was like this like ghost of a woman. Just creeped the hell out of me. That whole house was like, as you can imagine, kind of a rundown. This was not a nice place, but I got it, and it was perfect, and it was a unique experience. You know, first spot and on my own after school, and it's certainly like what you read about. You know, it's stingy. It's kind of gross. There's neighbors above you that you're not sure you can trust.
Oh my
There
gosh.
might be some bugs crawling around. It was not. You know,
You got your $300.
Yeah.
That's what it was worth.
but I was never home. I was working 6 days a week.
What kind? Where'd you go? What place?
Boulay
Boulay.
in Danube. So I worked. First, I got a job at Danube, which is David Boulay is the chef. He recently passed away a year ago or so, but he actually is from Connecticut, and he did really well for himself. He was very up and coming throughout the 80s and 90s. He partnered with Drew Nearpoint, and they opened up Montrachet, which is, you know, for me, I think one of the greatest restaurants ever in New York. And he was just a scientist, like just a madman in the kitchen, you know. And he went on to do some really interesting things with nutrition and cuisine, and he was really, you know, like a lot of chefs, like Daniel Boulud, or fill in the blank. They could have multiple places in New York based on their clout and what they developed and their relationships. And David stayed basically on the same block, but had like a couple different concepts. And he bought the real estate down there, so he really carved out his own space, which was really cool. It was a tough kitchen, you know. I felt like there was like a line of cooks that would walk in 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks there'd be another. Like they just ate them alive. It was really tough. People didn't stay very long. There was a lot of shouting, a lot of tough nights, and it wasn't David. It was, you know, it's the chef de cuisine. It's and that's sort of, you could say a lot about that. For me, my experience was these chefs that you work for and the names that people know. They're great people. They're great, yeah, and so are the people that are working for them, but. They're the ones that are going to be tough on you. The chefs de cuisines, that's the toughest position. You know, that's like, you know, that's where it all needs to happen. And
what, are you like a sous there, or a line cook?
I work garde manger, very simple start, but it was a great kitchen. It was run by Danube was run by a younger guy from Alabama who was really great, JD, and then Boulay was run by this guy Cesar, who went to go open up Chef's Table in Brooklyn, which is 3-star Michelin restaurant.
Yeah.
And he was really tough. So it was a great introduction to what a serious New York kitchen can be. This is a really serious kitchen. So I did a year there, and I was sort of kind of getting tired with New York. I didn't love living in New York, but I knew I had to cut my teeth in a couple places, and so I needed to do one more big one, and that's why I went off and started at Le Bernardin.
Oh, I didn't know you worked there.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Le Bernardin for a year.
Wow.
You have to do a year when you go to Le Bernardin.
You can't do less than a year.
If you don't do a year, it's like you
failed.
You're checked. Yeah.
So you work there, and who do you work under there?
I worked under Chris Mueller, who's the chef de cuisine. He was really tough. That was a really tough kitchen.
Are you doing garde manger there too?
I started in garde manger, and I worked. You know, the kitchen at Le Bernardin is a very traditional brigade, the most traditional kitchen I've ever worked with, in terms of having the quantity of cooks, the way the line was set up, the way the mise en place was organized. They did it by the book, the old school French way, which was really good, and I learned a lot there about not only how to organize service from a cook standpoint, but also how just seeing how the front of house, the service there is impeccable, and how they expedite, how they organize, how they flow. The seatings, it was a machine. You had a first seating right at 5 o'clock. You do 70 covers. Then your second seating right at 7:30 would be another 100, and then you'd have a third seating at 9:30, 10 o'clock for another 60 to 70. It was massive numbers, but done perfectly. It was, and you had to be a madman, and this guy Chris was, and he had a lot of kids running around, scared the shit out of him that they would screw up, so that they didn't, and that's how it was run.
And that's all tasting there, right?
Yeah, multi-course.
Multi-course, yeah.
So the line's literally set up so like the first course is one huge line where it's all garde manger, it's all raw, and then the second line is barely cooked, just warm, and then the last line is where all the hot entrees and the poached fish and the saucier is there. So it was an awesome kitchen.
But in the sauciers, like I think I watched something one time. They have like they get there like 2 a.m. and they're building sauces all night.
At Le Bernardin?
Yeah. Or is it?
Yeah. I mean, it depends. The traditional way would be to have some sort of demi or a stock of some sort rolling all night, and then whoever gets there first, they're usually an AM saucier and a PM saucier. And the AM saucier would get there early, and that is a very coveted position because that's a day shift essentially, and you get to do all the fun sauce making. You get it set up. You work a nice light lunch service, and then you're done. And you set up the PM cook, and you're gone.
You're gone.
But Le Bernardin still to this day, I think, has the same AM saucier. He's been there for like 30 years.
Yeah,
this guy named Vincent. He's from Trinidad. He's awesome.
Incredible, right? Because I think it was Repair. One of those guys was saying like the saucier is the artist, like because you're building these complex flavors, and it's science.
That's the magic. That's the
magic,
fun stuff,
right?
And Le Bernardin's all about the sauce. It's about supreme product, and from seafood standpoint, simply manipulated with an amazing French sauce.
And that's
it's a good formula. It works really well.
Wow. So, but didn't I read recently they were going vegetarian?
They offer a vegetarian tasting menu.
Oh no, I thought they went completely vegetarian.
No. God, no.
Wow. Okay.
No, it's still the temple of Poisson.
Oh no, that was 11. What's the 11 Medicine Park? What's the restaurant?
Oh, 11 Medicine.
They went. I think
they're all vegetarian.
They went vegetarian. Yeah, and people were like $375 for vegetarian.
Well, I mean, it makes sense if you have a guest that comes in and they want to do a tasting menu. If you don't offer an alternative tasting menu that is going to be plant-based, you're missing out on a lot of market.
No,
you're
right,
missing
of course.
out a lot of, and the perception a lot, I think, with chefs is that, oh yeah, it's going to be cheaper. Sure, I'll sell as many vegetarian tasting menus as you want, but actually, vegetarian tasting menus are more labor-intensive. There's more vegetables just demand a little bit more attention for us, especially if you're going to dress them up and sell them for that ticket at a restaurant. So that's why I love cooking vegetables, and we always have great vegetable focused forward dishes at Present Company. But I think it would be really cool to dive deeper into that later on in my career. I think obviously that's where we're all going. So yeah.
So you finish. You do a year there. And then do you pull the ripcord on New York City?
Then I got a job in France.
Oh.
Through Eric Repair at Le Bernardin in Bordeaux. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I did this. I applied for this scholarship called the Jean-Louis Paladin Foundation Scholarship. Basically what it was, Jean-Louis Paladin was a famous French chef. He was the youngest chef in France at the time to get 3-star Michelin. He got it like when he was like 24, 25 years old. He was a wizard, and he moved to D.C. and opened up a restaurant in that time during the late 70s, early 80s, where all these European chefs were coming over and coming to the American market and just blowing up the scene. He was doing it in D.C. And his legacy, he passed way too young from cancer, but his legacy was basically saying to the rest of the culinary world and the American public that, hey guys, you don't have to import all this butter and this cheese from France and Europe. You guys have an amazing product here in the United States. Look around. We can just use it, and we don't need to, this thing of European dominance and superiority is bullshit. basically. And so he did a great job with building relationships with different vendors throughout the country. For instance, before him, Jonah crab is a crab that I love from Maine. And no one really even, fishermen didn't even go for it. They didn't even serve it because they didn't have a market for it. And when he came and discovered that, he turned that all around. So that's just one example. And the scholarship that is in his name, basically in that principle of taking young culinary minds or students and shoving them to certain areas of the world for them to understand where a product comes from. So they have a program in the Bering Sea to learn about. At the time they did, and this organization doesn't exist anymore. But to go to Bering Sea and learn about halibut fishing, or go to Maine, learn about lobster fishing, or go to an organic farm in Ohio called Chef's Garden and learn about organic farming. The one that I went for was to learn about wine, and that happened to be in Bordeaux. So, and that was strategic because I wanted to work in France, and I knew that this would be a great opportunity to try to get a job. It was a 2-week all-expense-paid trip to go and tour all these amazing vineyards, meet the winemakers, be invited into their home and have lunch with them, meet their family. I was just old enough to realize how amazing it was, but too young enough to really
how insane
oh my
that
God,
is.
how insane it was. I was so fortunate. So I became friends with the host family, and this man named Christophe and his family took me in. And we went to La Tupina, which is the bistro that I ended up working at. And we had it like one of our final dinners before we flew back home. And I fell in love with the place. I just knew this was the type of experience I wanted to gain from being in Europe. It was a very simple but very refined bistro, serving amazing foie gras and confit de canard, and they were frying potatoes, the chips, and duck fat over the open fire.
So good.
I mean, it was just, I had never seen anything like it before. And I asked the owner, his name's Jean-Pierre, who was having dinner with us, in my broken French, as much as I could, to ask him if he would hire me. I'd come back and work for him. And, he kind of laughed, and they said something in French I didn't really understand. And they said, well, on verra, we'll see, basically. And a few months later, after I went home, after pursuing it with the consulate and everything, I got the offer to go and get sponsored, and I got a working visa for 1 year to go work at La Tupina, which was, that was a dream come true. I had this opportunity to work in an already established and well-known bistro for sort of this amazing, jovial mayor of Bordeaux. This guy Jean-Pierre was always a celebrity. He had his own TV show. He didn't cook. I mean, this restaurant was already 30 years old, so he would come in for lunch almost every day and entertain winemakers. He'd have just beautiful cashmere vests or sweaters on and smoking cigars. I mean, the guy was like,
He knew how to live life.
Oh, he was the man.
Out of central casting.
He was the patron. And
Le patron.
and so he took me under and made.
How long did you live there?
I was there for a year.
Oh, so you speak French now?
I learned.
Okay.
I've lost a lot because I don't use it.
You could check into a hotel.
I could get by.
Yeah,
I could get by. But Jean-Pierre and Christophe in Bordeaux was an amazing experience. I couldn't really speak French when I got there. It was somewhat
like high
conversational.
French.
Yeah. But I learned really quick, especially after like 3 months of me being there. There was the sous chef at the restaurant left. The executive chef was leaving, so there was some dynamics going on. And I think it resulted in them asking me, even though I was only 3 months there, to step in as a sous chef, which I didn't understand at the time. I didn't think that they were really serious because I still couldn't really speak French, and how was I going to be able to run a kitchen with half the cooks that I can't really communicate very well with them. So they said, you'll get through it. We'll support you. You got to try. You can cook. You came from a great restaurant in New York. You've got solid experience. We'll see what you can do. And we know you want to work. So that opportunity, I ran with it. And I think it was one of the best years of my cooking career.
Wow.
Where I grew and I became confident and my French got better. And You know, calling a purveyor on the phone didn't become some like thing I dreaded.
And you didn't have like the Google where you can like
no
type it in.
Yeah, this was 2006.
Yeah, so you're just
I had like
figure it out.
I had like a French like little Nokia
Yeah,
phone
yeah,
or whatever.
Yeah, and it would give you like the one word at a time.
Yeah. Texting in French was never my strong suit. That took forever.
So you're there, and you learning classic French preparation.
This was cuisine sudwest, southwestern. So it was high on duck. There was the local beef, Charolais beef was featured everywhere. The concept was you walked in, and the coolest thing was about a table as big as this. When you walk in, and there's a chimney behind it with a fireplace and a wood cranked spit with chickens roasting, and a big slab of Côte de Boeuf on the grill, on a wood grill, and like all displayed on the table is a crudité of vegetables, a basket full
Fresh stuff.
We had to arrange every day, come up with basically a panier de légumes, like just a vegetables displayed every day, just artfully on that table. So it was just like, I never experienced anything like it, and I got a really good appreciation of French culture and French product. And the recipes were simple. I mean, we were sautéing ceps with garlic and parsley. That was it, and just doing it right with great product. And it was a great place. They asked me. I was fortunate enough to be offered to stay, but I wanted to work in a Michelin restaurant in France. So I left and did 3 months in between my next job, where I went and staged and worked for several different
in Paris
restaurants
or
all around France.
Okay.
Yeah, I took some time to on train with my bike, travel throughout the country, and I did my tour of France. Because even if I didn't get a job, I still wanted to at least experience these restaurants. Like, for instance, Michel Bras. This is a chef that I've Googled and goggled over for years, and I needed to at least step on the throne of his restaurant and see it in my own place. And if they would at least give me a chance,
you say, I'll work. I'll do whatever.
Yeah. So that
did it.
That place never let me in. No, I couldn't, and I never made it actually there to go eat. It's still a dream of mine. But it was the same situation. It was through Jean-Pierre and through some of the connections I had in France already. I did get some invitations to go stage. I probably would have gotten some offers, but it was, it's not easy for the employer to sponsor you, and the whole rigmarole that they have. The French are known for paperwork. So, but luckily, one of the last places I went to was a place in Grasse, which is a town that's known for perfumery. It's like the birthplace of perfumery. It's right above Nice.
Is it like Havre de Grasse? Or is it different?
Grasse is Grasse is right above.
Oh, Grasse. I was thinking of GRAC.
Cannes and Nice, so right in the Riviera.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful area. It's an old.
Is that the Côte d'Azur?
Exactly,
Yeah.
Côte d'Azur, and it's in the. It's like on an old olive farm, and they have a hotel and a terrace that overlooks you can see the ocean from there, but it's like you're 25 miles inland and up, so it's just absolutely gorgeous. 2-star Michelin restaurant, and the Jacques Chibois, on face value, when he met me, said, "Yeah, I'll hire you." He's like, "Oh, you work for Jean-Pierre? I know him. Yeah. Oh, you're American? We'll get it figured out." So I again went home, and I had to go through the rigmarole with the consulate and get my visa, and I went back and I worked for him for a year, and that was the toughest job I ever had.
Really?
Yeah.
What made it tough?
I mean, that was just next level. He had like an army of cooks from all around the world that went to go work for him, and it was like every year it changed. So I was just there for that season, along with Taki from Japan, and George from Belgium, and Cindy from Australia. There was just cooks from all around the world that worked there, which was awesome. And then there was French kids. So it was a lunch dinner spot, and in France you do demi chauffage. Basically, it's the word. Basically, you split the day in half as a cook. So you'd get there and 8 o'clock, set up your station, prep hard to get ready for lunch. Lunch is open at noon, sometimes a little bit later, 12:30. You're done with lunch by 2:30. You've got an hour to break down. You're pretty much done by 3 o'clock, and you've got this 2-hour window where you can go home and take a nap or run some errands or go to
Whatever
the
you need.
beach or whatever, and then you come back to work again at 5:30, 6 o'clock. You have your staff meal, you prep really hard, and then the doors open at 8 o'clock. So that was the schedule. And so that was the same schedule in Bordeaux, but this was the pressure and the stress and the intensity while we were there was next level. I never experienced anything like it. The chef was very Machiavellian and very authoritative and loud. I didn't know like a grown man could scream like that.
Wow.
Yeah, and like anyone was subject. It didn't matter if you were his sous chef for 3 years or if you're his pastry chef. Like anyone was liable to get dressed as he saw fit, including me. So
And in an abusive way.
yeah, in a really demeaning way,
And not to like
and
make you better.
excessively like holy cow, like I want to say some expletives, but I won't. Man, it's just like he just, the friend he brought it to another level. So much so that there was an incident, very unfortunate incident, where a colleague of ours, a young colleague, French guy, didn't show up for work, and he went missing. And he wrote a note. We all lived together in this like dormitory, basically, that he had taken his life.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that was like towards the end of my tenure there. I was doing essentially 12 months there, and by like the 11th month, this happened, and I was sort of spent there already. And when this happened, it was just this like kind of like, okay, get me the hell out of here. I'm done. This place has been enough.
Wow.
It was rough. I saw him break down in front of everyone. It was this guy that you thought was just this like unreal dictator of a chef, and he could get away with anything. And when the news came and we had like a staff meeting, everyone was there, and he just openly wept in front of everyone. And I felt like I was too naive to realize it, but it did feel like something was happening. Like, wow, like I'm witnessing the tides change here in this industry. Like this is the type of stuff that's happening that can't happen anymore. And
Can't treat people like that.
Right. And these are the sort of kitchens that need to get with it and change. Which
What
they
about
have.
but you see, and I know a lot of it is shtick. People tell me, but like Gordon Ramsay, in Hell's Kitchen, and he does that. Like he's known to be, he yells at the people, he insults them.
Yeah.
Is that must bother you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand how people can work for someone that does that and in an environment like that. It's so counterproductive.
Well, it's like even like you have nephews and like I have kids. Like sometimes you do lose your temper and you yell, but everybody tells you like all my friends that the work that I do, I know psychologists, and they say if you could just keep your temper, you'll get better results. My kid was freaking out with something the other day, and I really was gonna like go at it with him, like just yell at him and stuff. And I just did everything in my power. I kept my cool, and it worked out like so much better and so much faster because he saw me as calm. I just let him have his thing, and like then it was a teaching moment, and he took away from it. He said to me later, "Thank you for being so cool about that." And I was like, "Oh yeah, no problem."
Yeah,
because you're right. It's just you scream at somebody like that. Who the hell wants to work for you? I don't. Like that tough love, like coarse shit. Like they think that was like, oh, that's how I was taught, and that's how you'll be taught. I'm like, well, it doesn't mean it's the best way.
They did it because they could get away with it.
Right.
It was the easier way to do it. What you did with your son, and what any chef really wants to do is fix it and solve it. Right? We're not trying to make it worse, but it's just so much easier to act like that and react instead of. So I mean, and that's when I sort of really started to lean in on this whole thing of being a chef. It wasn't just being a cook. It was about being a really good person and a leader and someone, that excels in organizational behavior, psychology, just as an empath that gets it, because these other chefs, like they're going to be limited by that. Right?
So then you finish up your year there. Do you head back to the States?
I did. I went back, and at the time, in between actually my two jobs, I started part-time working at On 20 restaurant.
Oh, yeah. the old Polytechnic Club.
Under Noel Jones.
Yes. I remember that. I used to work in that building for years.
Yeah. Yeah. So I went back to, this was 2009, and I was jonesing to come home and like plant some roots and like get some income, and like because I had been in France and Europe for like almost 3 years at that point.
Right.
and this was like economy was like, and so I wasn't intending on coming home to Connecticut. I thought I was going to stay here and then like springboard out to West Coast or back to another metropolitan area for another great restaurant. But because I started part-timing at On 20 and I got fused with Noel and I really fell in love with the place, I stayed. And so he asked me to come back after France to be the chef de cuisine, which was just, an incredible opportunity for me. It was the first time that I had that opportunity here
At the On 20.
at On 20.
Which was a unique place because if I recall, like it's a place that lost tons and tons of money, but it was subsidized. So it was, you could sort of have the most fun and do whatever you wanted, but didn't have to worry about the bottom line. Is that right?
Well, yes and no. It was a unique operation in that the main tenet of it was to offer an excellent experience, regardless of the profit and loss statement. But it was still a business, and it was still run accordingly. And you could model that business up against any other operation. You could learn a lot of best standards, and what I learned a lot as well. But it was, you're absolutely right, a unique place where you were able to have provide guests with experiences that just weren't possible.
Were you there
in the
when they
market.
had that cart, the dessert cart? I love that.
Oh yeah,
Remember that?
Yep. We actually, I was part of the team that killed the dessert cart. Unfortunately,
that's you. Oh, I thought that was
in
like an old
retrospect,
school.
I miss it, but
It's like old school
at the
stuff.
time, and James Arena, who's a very talented pastry chef, who was there for years, and he went out to Arethusa. He and I were
I
like,
know
no, we
that
got to get
is.
rid of the dessert tray. This is so uncool. We need to plate desserts, and so, but yeah,
I love an old school tableside Caesar.
yeah.
I love an old school cherries flambe or bananas fall. I mean that's like when I teach my son when we go to he loves fine dining, as you know, and every time we can sit at a counter like at your place or like our sushi restaurant, right? Omakase, or even if we're just sitting there, I said, anytime you get to sit at the precipice of a kitchen, do it. Because anytime we go out anywhere here, I'm not gonna. I just said someone brings me, so I don't see anything. I want to like look people in the eye. There's, you have that experience because you have such a unique place. But like sushi restaurants, I always sit at the sushi bar because where else do you get? And I start talking to the sushi chef and try to build a relationship because you're sitting there and I'm watching you cook. You can talk a little bit. You build a relationship. And you're like, hey, try this, or have a bite. You toss over a piece of foie gras or something like.
It's like
That's
coolest part
the
of cooking.
coolest part of
professionally.
cooking.
Yeah.
And then you could also, you're interfacing with the chef because at those French places, right? You're just very formal. They bring it out, and did you guys? Let me just back up to that a second because one of my favorite Anthony Bourdain episodes. There's no reservation, and he actually bought one of them. It was the press where you take the duck and you put it and it pushes out all the juice.
Presse de canard.
The presse de canard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he has one. Actually, they auctioned it. His ex-wife auctioned his off that he lugged back from France. But did you guys do that?
We did some really cool stuff there. At the time, the molecular cuisine was very much de rigueur, and Noel was a madman with that, and so we learned a lot about encapsulation and
We was doing foams
freezing
in the spring
and
and
so we had some cool things, and we were getting into sous vide hardcore, and I was obsessed with sous vide for a while. I thought it was going to revolutionize cuisine, and I really needed to understand it really well. So I spent a lot of time circulating at On 20, and we had a great menu. And Noel moved on, and I took over as chef, and that's when I think really started to feel like this was where I wanted to stay and be part of this culinary community. I had started to build relationships with the chefs around here, Scott Miller,
oh yeah,
who I worked for a brief stint when he was the chef at Oyster Club. He actually helped me get my job at On 20. Billy, Tyler, all these cool guys, and I was like, yeah, I want to be part of this too. So it was a really cool time to be at On 20, be associated with that table of chefs, even though I was definitely their junior and I looked up to them until I still do. But I also saw this is a good opportunity for me to, take what I've learned and try to do my own thing. And that's when I sort of got that bug in my head about, oh, I can open up my own spot and want to do my own thing. And that was always my dream. Is, you know, my grandfather told me at a young age, you know, you can do whatever you want, but make sure you work for yourself. Sure, you know, but that, you know, was something that kind of was in the rearview mirror for most of the time. And then I started to put it on my dashboard and be like, no, actually, this is what I'm going to do. So, you know, I spent a couple of years when I was out on 20 just kind of fantasizing. I was talking to people. I remember having meetings with, this guy's got a ton of money and he wants to open up this, or this guy's interested in you and he's got a location.
There's a lot of those guys.
I was doing a lot of that. Yeah. I was doing a lot of, wouldn't this be cool? A lot of pipe dreams. And then my general manager at the time around 20 was Tom Gale. And he had left to go. He worked for Billy for most of his career. He left to come to work with us at around 20, and then he went back to Billy. When he was back there, he was, promoting this whole thing about the mill at 2T. It might be up for sale. You should go for it, Jeff. And I valued his encouragement quite a bit. And he definitely gave me a boost of confidence to say you should really pursue this. And I think originally wasn't too keen on it because I knew the space. I'd grown up in there in Terriffill, and I just didn't see that being the right move for me. But then when I went to go look at it and I thought about it more and talked about it with friends and family, and then I sat and I talked with Ryan and Kellyanne when we got a little more serious, I came to the realization quite quickly that, wow, this is a great opportunity, and how lucky could I be to get.
It's like that little bistro. It's like the
oh my god
bistro.
It's like a little season life. Like you're so, your head's up your ass so much that you don't see the greatness in front of you. And it took me a while to come around and be like,
that's a special spot.
Yeah, and be like, this is freaking dime, Jeff. Like, gotta go for it. So Ryan and Kellyanne and Tom and I did a deal, and they closed the doors, and within a month and a half, we had reopened the space as present company in 2016.
How'd you get the
about
name?
8 years ago, in yoga class.
Oh.
Yeah, I
present in your company.
Exactly. Two words that were sort of bouncing around in my brain, and I put them together, and I had one of those light bulb, like literally, like ding. And I was like, "That's it.
That's it."
But I had convinced myself by the time I had driven home after class that it wasn't a move. I was like, "No, it's not." I got really excited, and then I started saying, I was like, that's so weird. Like, no one has a restaurant like that. Like, it doesn't even say, like, you don't even know what it is. It's like, I was maybe too esoteric.
Yeah.
But then when I talked about it again the next day with Tommy and my lawyer and whatever, and we were like, okay, actually, no, this is a really cool name.
So now obviously you've expanded. You have this deck, and you've made it, and you're thriving, and it's one of the premier places.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. I'm very proud of.
And do you still have the passion to cook? Do you love it?
Oh yeah.
You still working there?
Yeah. So I'm really excited about what's ahead of me in my career. Present company for the last 8 years has been the hardest thing, but the best thing I've ever done. The most rewarding, it's an evolution for me, moving to a new space where actually I'm going full circle. I'll be going back to pursue the opening of a new restaurant where the on 20 space was.
Oh, I heard about that. That's right. I heard you were doing that. So you're going to manage that or run it, or?
Yeah, it's going to be called The Foundry.
Okay.
It's set to open up later this year.
Okay.
Quite an ambitious project. It's a completely new space.
Is it on the 20th floor?
It's going to be on the 20th floor.
Same space.
Yep.
And are you going to be the chef de cuisine?
I'm going to be the director of operations.
Director, okay, right.
Yep.
Are you going to get Mike back? Remember Mike? Is he still around?
Mike McGarity?
Yes.
I think he's in retirement, but I will
You
certainly
should bring
send him a
back
note.
for something. I remember that guy he was the king of hospitality.
He knew your name. He knew what you liked to drink.
He knew. I remember he'd walk in there. I was there when in the early aughts, I went there, and I was working in that building from like 99 to 2005 or 6. And I remember just getting into fine dining, and I'd go there, and I had lunch one time, and he's like, "Oh, Mr. Rockland, I'll turn you Rockland. I'll mail you a bill." They mail you a bill. They would come, and I'd write a check and bring it down.
That was the whole people thought it was a private club because you could have an account.
It was called a Polytechnic Club, right?
It was. look, the space has gone through a lot. I mean, it opened in 1982,
Right.
under the Polytechnic Club, under Chef Chris, who was the original chef until Noel took it over in 2005 or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
it's it's such a really cool story. It's such a cool space, and it means a lot to the Hartford community, and it means a lot to me.
That's
So
going to be great.
I'm
So you're going to
really
open
excited.
that up. What is your favorite junk food?
Cheetos probably.
Your Cheetos guy?
Yeah.
How about fast food?
Took down some Cheetos this weekend
did,
on
yeah?
the beach. Yeah, that was good. Fast food?
Yeah.
I mean, I was Shake Shack probably.
Your Shake Shack? Okay, yeah, that's a good
probably
one.
Shake Shack.
That's sort of like elevated fast food, though. Right?
I'll go there. I don't eat it very often, but if I go, I always like to try like the seasonal burger or whatever
yeah.
it is. You know,
They have a good burger, I think.
yeah.
I think their fries are too salty, but
usually I never go for fries. That's my move. If I
you'd
do
rather
fast
get
food,
a bigger burger.
I'll actually get something else too.
Oh,
I'll
I
get
see.
like the chicken.
Right, and then get the fries because you're just like whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's smart.
yeah,
Then you don't have as
yeah.
much calories. So you're a Shake Shack guy. And what do you and what is your like favorite thing to cook at home?
Well, I guess I'm a sucker for braising something on a
Okay.
Sunday, doing something nice and slow. In growing up in my house, it was always just like a very simple Yankee pot roast,
Like a pot roast, cooking
Yeah.
in a crock pot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, a little bit of elevated version of that. That's something a nice baked bread.
Okay.
And a good bottle of wine.
What and then what are your Connecticut and in no order and no preference, but what are your favorite restaurants? What do you like these days?
Well, I've always been a big fan of Tyler and Millwrights. That's just a gorgeous space.
Yeah, yeah.
And what he's done, you can't. It's very easy in our day, in our world, to like just move on to the next thing.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, that's over. But what
kept it
he
going for a while,
accomplished
yeah.
is pretty rad. So, and it's right down the street
Right.
from where I grew up. And so
Yeah,
that's our spot now.
right, because you have two of the best restaurants in the state are in Simsbury, right? You and
Well,
Millwrights,
yeah, it's because he did Millwrights was because I was like, oh, I could try present company. Like if Millwrights is doing it, then
right,
maybe
and
there's
if
a chance.
and if you're full, go to Millwrights, and if he's full, he sends
Yeah.
them to you.
Yeah. So what else? I've always loved going to Union Square Cafe
Okay.
when I'm ever in New Haven.
Oh, that's a good one. The French, yeah.
Union League. I'm
Union
sorry.
League, yeah,
I
yeah,
said
yeah, on Chapel
Square.
Street, yeah.
Yeah. The French in me.
Yeah.
I get my French fix
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I live in Granby now, but for years when I was working around 20 and when I opened up Present Company for a while, I was almost in the West End of Hartford for 10 years. So I spent a lot of time at Half Door,
Oh, yeah.
Tisane,
Oh, yeah, Tisane was good. That was a good restaurant.
Ichiban.
Oh, Ichiban. I love that.
Tangiers.
Oh, they have
I
good
still
hummus
love
there.
Tangiers. If people don't know about Tangiers,
Tangiers is one of the
it's most
gems
amazing.
in this
It's
area.
Absolutely.
That hummus they make is like
a
from
special
heaven.
place. Yeah.
How about so Tangiers? I'm thinking. How about in the center? You know who I love? It's a friend of mine. Arugula. You ever go to Arugula?
I haven't been to Arugula in a
So
while.
I sent so many chefs there that are like, I've been there. They've been there 30 years. You don't last in the center 30 fucking
Right,
years.
you're not doing
unless you're
something
good,
right.
Chris, first of all, she's a character. But that food there, Chris and Mike, who's been her guy who's worked with her forever, he's basically an owner. But he that food there is fucking amazing. I sent Tyler there and he like says to me, he's like, Rich, that place is so good.
Thank you
It's
for
so
reminding me. I
good.
keep forgetting about
Go there,
that.
go see Chris. It's the food is
Yeah.
their mussels. I want to bathe in like
Wow.
it's like a Thai mussel, and
Wow.
they have these flatbreads that are great. They're tuna. They've been making the tuna dish. The best thing is they have an eggplant Napoleon that'll change your life. It has 18 layers of flavor
love
that you
eggplant.
put in your mouth and you're just like
Oh,
lights
I
out.
love
You're just
that.
like, what happened to me?
I gotta do
It's
that.
fantastic. Yeah, you should. I love them. And I'm also.
I'm a big fan of Billy when I'm in the center too.
I
When we
mean,
go to
you can't go
Brico.
wrong there.
Yeah.
It's just so
Yeah.
solid.
I remember in 2006 or 7 is when I was working at the Oyster Club under Scott Miller, and I mean, that was probably one of the busiest. I worked Saute on Friday and Saturday nights. That was one of the busiest stations I've ever experienced. And, what was better than anything was, finishing up, having a good service, and then going across the street to Grant's to have a couple of drinks with your colleagues. And we would literally be the only people there. So this was like such a change. So I always tell people, when Grant's was such a big spot, that when I was in the center, we would like be the only ones there, and we like lock the doors and smoke cigarettes in the back corner. Like it was just a crazy change and transformation that's happened in the center, and it's awesome.
It is awesome. So what do you think then makes to sort of wind down here? Like, what do you think makes a good chef? Like, what do you think are the qualities that you need to do this so well? Like, what do you think are the best qualities that you need?
I think you need to have compassion. You gotta have you have to have a lot of things to be a good chef. It really is more than
Not just technique.
than technique.
So
Yeah.
like personality, like compassion. What else?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the best thing a chef can do is bring people together and motivate them to do what is this big thing we call service, this task. And when you bring people together in a way that's effective, and it doesn't involve like actual technique, but the culture you create, the environment you instill, the encouragement that you give, the support that you, all those things, and that creating that environment where people are happy. And that's when the good stuff happens, and that's, I think, the key to any chef's success is doing that. That's what I focus on mostly.
But I would argue that that's even good advice for any type of business.
Yeah. Chef in French means boss. You're boss. This is about
So even
leading
Spanish,
people.
right? Jefe. It's almost
Jefe,
like
yep.
Wow. All right. I'm heading to Paris with my son after London for 3 days. You got any recommendations there?
So I didn't spend a lot of time in Paris because I was elsewhere in France. But Le Comptoir is a for sure, and that is a place in
Comptoir. What does that mean? That means
the counter.
The counter, right?
Yeah.
The cashiers.
Yeah,
Right?
it's not a Michelin, but it's just incredibly well executed,
Comptoir. Where is
modern
it?
French bistro food in a tiny space. They have tables outside.
Like steak tartare, escargot.
Yeah. Oh, I love but the
this.
best you'll ever have.
Best you'll ever have.
Yeah, that's a really cool spot. And then there's other places if you really want to go big. Like in Arpège is probably
Arpège. Yeah, Tyler loves Arpège.
is probably the place that if you had the means to do the tasting menu there. But yeah, I mean Paris. I can't tell you
I
where
know
to
there's a
start
million
there. It's
places, right?
crazy.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much. I love your food. I love watching your success. You're an asset to the community, and I like learning about your French background. That's fantastic, and I enjoy watching all of your success. And everyone should go certainly eat at the present company. It's a fantastic experience, and your reputation certainly precedes you. So thank you.
Thanks, Rich.